What happens when a forbidden obsession turns deadly? In this chilling true crime story from Austin, Texas, a young woman's secret love for her boyfriend's father spirals into a web of lies, betrayal, and murder. This shocking case will leave you questioning just how far someone will go to pursue their darkest desires. Samantha Reed was a 24-year-old young woman with a troubled past who developed an unhealthy fixation on her boyfriend's father. Working as a graphic designer in Austin, Texas, she was known for her creativity and friendly demeanor, often seen as a kind and ambitious individual by her peers. However, beneath her bright exterior lay a history of emotional struggles that stemmed from a chaotic childhood. Samantha's longing for affection and validation led her to form an obsessive attachment to her boyfriend's father, a connection that would ultimately spiral out of control. Despite her outwardly normal life, her deep-seated insecurities and desires would push her toward a tragic and dangerous path. Jason Miller was a 26-year-old loving and unsuspecting boyfriend who found himself caught in the middle of a nightmare he never saw coming. Known for his caring nature and supportive attitude, Jason had always been there for Samantha, encouraging her in her career and standing by her side through various challenges. He was a dedicated student, working hard to complete his degree while balancing a part-time job. To everyone around them, including their friends and family, Jason and Samantha appear to be a perfect couple. However, unbeknownst to him, the secret obsession brewing within Samantha was about to shatter the life they had built together and lead to unimaginable consequences. Mark Miller was a 52-year-old respected and charismatic figure in the Austin community, known for his successful career as a business executive and his involvement in local charitable organizations. With his warm smile and approachable demeanor, he was admired by many and often seen as a role model for younger generations. Mark had built a reputation for being not only a dedicated father but also a mentor to those who sought his guidance. Despite his many accomplishments, he remained blissfully unaware of the dangerous obsession brewing under his roof. While he focused on providing for his family and engaging with the community, the dark and twisted feelings that Samantha harbored for him were slowly taking shape, setting the stage for a tragic confrontation that would upend their lives. The relationships between Samantha, Jason, and Mark appeared to be perfectly ordinary, characterized by a sense of familial warmth and youthful love. Samantha and Jason enjoyed a close-knit bond, sharing laughter, dreams, and moments that made their connection feel unbreakable. Mark, as Jason's father, played the role of a supportive patriarch, often welcoming Samantha into their family life and treating her like a daughter. This idyllic scene painted a picture of a harmonious family dynamic, yet it concealed a dangerous secret brewing beneath the surface. As Samantha's infatuation with Mark intensified, it evolved into an obsession that began to overshadow her life. While Jason remained blissfully unaware of the turmoil simmering within her, Samantha found herself increasingly torn between her feelings for him and her dangerous fixation on his father. Subtle signs of her internal conflict began to emerge: unexplained moments of anxiety during family gatherings, fleeting glances that lingered too long, and an overwhelming desire to be near Mark. Each day, the tension grew as Samantha struggled to maintain the facade of a loving girlfriend while grappling with emotions that threatened to unravel everything. This brewing storm of conflicting desires and secrets set the stage for a devastating confrontation, hinting that the perfect picture of their lives was far from reality. Samantha and Jason lived in the vibrant city of Austin, Texas, leading what appeared to be a normal life together. Their apartment, nestled in a bustling neighborhood filled with cafes and parks, reflected their youthful energy and hopes for the future. Friends often gathered at their place for movie nights, and the couple enjoyed weekend outings, painting a picture of an idyllic relationship filled with laughter and love. However, behind closed doors, Samantha harbored a secret obsession with Jason's father, Mark Miller. As the days passed, Samantha's infatuation grew stronger, fueled by her hidden feelings and the intimate moments they shared during family gatherings. While Jason saw his father as a role model and cherished the bond they had, Samantha found herself captivated by Mark's charisma and success. This duality created a dissonance in her life. The cozy apartment that should have been a sanctuary became a prison of conflicting emotions. As she struggled to navigate her feelings, the tension within her deepened, laying the groundwork for a dangerous obsession that would soon unravel everything they held dear. Samantha's intense feelings for Mark began as a fleeting admiration, but quickly evolved into a dangerous fixation that consumed her every thought. What started as occasional glances and innocent conversations during family gatherings transformed into an overwhelming desire to be near him at all times. As her obsession deepened, the lines between admiration and fixation blurred, leaving her emotionally drained and confused. Desperate to hide her feelings from Jason, Samantha became increasingly skilled at masking her emotions. She put on a facade of normalcy, engaging in playful banter with Jason while her mind raced with thoughts of his father. This duplicity weighed heavily on her, creating an internal conflict that gnawed at her conscience. Despite her efforts to maintain the status quo, her longing to be closer to Mark grew stronger. She found herself engineering opportunities to spend time with him, whether it was volunteering for family projects or seeking advice on design work, all while feigning innocence. With each passing day, the pressure of her hidden obsession mounted, propelling her toward a dangerous path that threatened to shatter the lives of everyone involved. As Samantha's obsession with Mark intensified, the subtle changes in her behavior became increasingly noticeable. What once was a composed and cheerful demeanor began to give way to irrational outbursts and erratic actions. Friends and family started to see glimpses of her inner turmoil, as she would sometimes snap at Jason over minor issues or become inexplicably distant during their outings. Her paranoia grew particularly acute when Mark was around. Samantha found herself hyper-aware of his every move, anxiously scrutinizing his interactions with others, including Jason. She would often linger in the background, attempting to gauge his reactions to her presence, and her heart would race at the thought of him being with someone else. This heightened sense of vigilance consumed her, causing sleepless nights filled with anxiety and obsessive thoughts. The weight of her hidden feelings became unbearable, and as she struggled to maintain control, the once loving and supportive girlfriend slowly morphed into a woman on the brink of a breakdown, unraveling as her fixation tightened its grip on her life. As Samantha's obsession deepened, friends and family started to notice the signs of trouble in her behavior. They observed her frequent absences from social gatherings, where she would often make excuses to leave early or skip events altogether. Those closest to her began to express concern over her unexplained mood swings, shifting from moments of laughter and joy to sudden bouts of anger or despondency. Jason, in particular, felt the impact of her growing emotional distance. He would reach out to her, hoping to connect, only to be met with vague responses and a sense of detachment that hadn't been there before. Small clues began to surface that something was terribly wrong. She often forgot important plans they had made. Her phone would mysteriously go silent when Mark was nearby, and her eyes would flicker with anxiety whenever Jason mentioned spending time with his father. This erratic behavior raised alarms among their friends, who began to whisper about Samantha's state of mind, hinting at the possibility that she was battling an unseen struggle. Despite the facade she tried to maintain, it became increasingly clear that beneath the surface, a storm was brewing that would soon reveal the dark reality of her obsession. In October 2022, Jason returned home after a long day at university, eager to share his latest achievements with his father, Mark. As he entered their family home, an unsettling silence hung in the air, immediately raising his concerns. Jason called out for his father, but there was no response. A growing sense of dread filled him as he made his way through the dimly lit rooms, his heart pounding in his chest. When he finally reached Mark's study, the sight that met him was horrifying. Mark lay lifeless on the floor, surrounded by scattered papers and overturned furniture. The scene had been carefully staged to resemble a robbery gone wrong, with drawers pulled open and valuables missing. However, as Jason knelt beside his father, the chilling realization washed over him that the truth was far more sinister than a simple burglary. The unnatural stillness of Mark's body, combined with the chaotic state of the room, hinted at the calculated nature of the act. In that harrowing moment, everything he thought he knew began to unravel. As shock and grief overwhelmed him, Jason couldn't shake the feeling that someone close to him was responsible for this unfathomable crime. The facade of their seemingly perfect lives shattered, and a wave of suspicion and horror swept through him, setting in motion a chain of events that would uncover the dark secrets hidden beneath their relationships. The crime scene was engulfed in an eerie quiet, broken only by the faint rustle of leaves outside and the distant hum of traffic, a stark contrast to the chaos that had unfolded within. As Jason stood frozen in the doorway of his father's study, the weight of dread pressed down on him. The room, once filled with warmth and laughter, was now a chilling tableau of violence. Mark's lifeless body lay sprawled on the floor, his expression frozen in a look of disbelief. Papers were scattered around him, as if caught in a whirlwind, and the desk was askew, further heightening the sense of disorder. The faint smell of something metallic lingered in the air, mingling with the rich scent of leather from the furniture. Jason felt a wave of nausea wash over him as he absorbed the grim reality. This was not just an unfortunate accident, but a deliberate act of malice. As news of the murder spread through the community, shock and horror engulfed Austin. Neighbors who had once exchanged friendly greetings now whispered in hushed tones, struggling to comprehend how such a heinous act could occur in their midst. Mark was not just a beloved father but also a respected member of the community, known for his charitable work and kindness. The revelation that his life had been taken so violently sent ripples of fear and disbelief through the hearts of those who knew him. As investigators combed through the scene for clues, the unsettling truth began to dawn on the community. The darkness that lurked behind closed doors could sometimes hide in plain sight, turning familiar faces into harbingers of unimaginable horror. The investigation into Mark's murder quickly drew the attention of the Austin Police Department, with detectives Sarah Mitchell and David Harris leading the case. Both seasoned officers, they were known for their keen instincts and relentless pursuit of the truth. As they arrived at the crime scene, the weight of the situation hung heavily in the air. They understood that this case would not be straightforward. From the outset, detectives Mitchell and Harris faced a perplexing challenge. The initial evidence pointed toward a botched robbery, but as they delved deeper, they struggled to find a clear motive. Mark was well respected in the community, and there were no apparent enemies who would wish him harm. Witness interviews provided little clarity. Friends and neighbors described him as a loving father and an active community member, with no hint of any hidden threats or grievances. As they examined the scene, they began to piece together inconsistencies. The positioning of Mark's body and the way the room was staged raised suspicions that suggested something far more sinister than a simple robbery. The detectives scrutinized every detail, questioning family members and friends, but it became increasingly evident that they would need to dig deeper into the lives of those closest to Mark to uncover the truth behind his tragic death. The investigation was fraught with tension, as they navigated the delicate dynamics of a family shattered by loss, all while racing against time to find answers before the community's fear and speculation spiraled out of control. As the investigation progressed, the forensic team meticulously combed through the crime scene, gathering crucial evidence that would eventually shift the course of the case. Initially, the detectives had focused on the idea of a robbery, but the emerging forensic findings began to paint a different picture altogether. The coroner's report revealed bruises on Mark's body, indicating a struggle prior to his death. Defensive wounds on his arms suggested that he had fought against his attacker, which contradicted the narrative of an unexpected robbery gone awry. As the forensic evidence mounted, the detectives felt the unsettling realization that this was a crime driven by personal motives rather than opportunistic greed. Moreover, inconsistencies began to surface in Samantha's statements to the police. Initially, she claimed to have been at home during the time of the murder, but her alibi lacked corroboration. As detectives further scrutinized her interactions and whereabouts, they discovered traces of her DNA at the crime scene, including hair fibers and skin cells found near Mark's body. This critical evidence made it impossible to ignore the possibility that Samantha might have been involved in the murder. With each revelation, the detectives felt a growing urgency to confront Samantha. The narrative of a random act of violence was crumbling, replaced by the disturbing idea that someone within the family circle had played a role in this heinous crime. As they prepared to bring her in for questioning, the tension in the air thickened, knowing they were on the verge of uncovering a dark and twisted truth that would rock their community to its core. In the wake of the forensic revelations, the police conducted a series of interviews with family members, friends, and crucially, Jason, Mark's son. As they questioned him, Jason's unease was palpable. While he was still grappling with the shock of his father's death, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply amiss regarding his girlfriend, Samantha. During the interview, Jason shared unsettling details about Samantha's increasingly strange attachment to his father. He recounted moments when Samantha would become unusually fixated on Mark, often seeking his approval and attention in ways that made Jason uncomfortable. At first, he dismissed it as a quirky dynamic in their relationship, but as he reflected on the past few months, the red flags became undeniable. Jason described instances where Samantha would exhibit jealousy toward their close-knit family interactions, feeling threatened by the bond he shared with his father. It dawned on him that her obsession had escalated to a dangerous level. She couldn't bear the idea of losing her chance with Mark, believing that their relationship could somehow blossom into something more than just a fantasy. As the detectives listened intently, it became clear that Samantha's motives were driven not just by obsession, but by a desperate need to secure her place in a life that she believed was slipping away from her grasp. The unsettling realization that she might have seen Mark not just as a father figure, but as a potential partner, added a chilling layer to the investigation. Each detail Jason provided painted a darker portrait of Samantha, solidifying the detectives' resolve to uncover the full extent of her role in the tragedy that had unfolded. The trial was a spectacle of raw emotions, drawing the attention of the entire community, who were eager to witness the unraveling of a tragic tale that had captivated them for months. As the proceedings began, the courtroom was filled with an atmosphere thick with tension, where every word spoken seemed to resonate with the weight of the evidence presented. One of the most powerful moments came when Jason took the stand, his voice trembling as he recounted his relationship with Samantha and the unfathomable betrayal he felt. The pain etched on his face was palpable, drawing gasps from the audience as he recalled the moments leading up to his father's murder. "I never thought she could hurt my dad," he said, his eyes welling with tears. "She was supposed to be the person I could trust, and instead, she turned our lives into a nightmare." His heartfelt testimony not only highlighted his anguish, but also cast a harsh light on Samantha's actions, revealing the depth of his shattered trust. In contrast, the testimonies from family members and close friends painted a disturbing picture of Samantha's secret obsession. Mark's closest friends recounted their unease at Samantha's behavior, describing how she would often linger too long around Mark, seeking his attention and approval. They recalled conversations where she would express an inexplicable fondness for him, a fact that made them uncomfortable but was brushed off at the time as youthful infatuation. These testimonies contributed to a growing narrative that Samantha's obsession was not merely a fleeting fancy but something deeply troubling that had escalated to dangerous levels. As the trial progressed, investigators detailed the chilling evidence they had uncovered, including the forensic findings and the unsettling dynamics between Samantha, Jason, and Mark. The courtroom was left in stunned silence as they described the lengths to which Samantha had gone to conceal her obsession, culminating in the devastating act that took Mark's life. Each testimony added layers to the narrative, compelling the jury and the audience to grapple with the emotional turmoil of the situation. The atmosphere was charged with grief, anger, and disbelief, encapsulating the profound impact of Mark's murder on everyone involved. With each word spoken, it became increasingly clear that the consequences of obsession could ripple far beyond the individuals directly involved, leaving a lasting scar on all those who were touched by this tragic case. As the trial continued, the courtroom became a battleground of contrasting narratives, with the defense and prosecution locked in a fierce struggle over Samantha's culpability. The defense team sought to frame Samantha as a deeply troubled young woman, emphasizing her mental instability and portraying her as a victim of unreciprocated love. They argued that her obsession with Mark had spiraled out of control due to emotional turmoil and vulnerability, suggesting that she had not acted with malice, but rather out of a desperate need for affection that she felt she could never attain. This strategy aimed to evoke sympathy from the jury, painting Samantha as a tragic figure caught in a web of her own making. However, the prosecution was resolute in their depiction of Samantha as a calculating individual whose actions were not those of a lovesick girl, but of a cold-blooded murderer. They meticulously laid out the timeline of events leading up to Mark's death, highlighting the premeditated nature of the crime. Key pieces of evidence, including her suspicious behavior and incriminating forensic findings, painted a stark picture of Samantha's true character. The prosecution emphasized that her obsession had crossed the line into a dangerous fixation, culminating in a deliberate act of violence rather than a moment of irrationality. One of the courtroom's most shocking revelations came when the prosecution unveiled a series of text messages exchanged between Samantha and a close friend in the days leading up to the murder. The messages hinted at her escalating frustration and jealousy over Mark's perceived lack of interest in her, revealing a mindset that had become increasingly possessive and unstable. This evidence turned the tide of the trial, illustrating that Samantha had been contemplating drastic actions long before the tragic event occurred. The tension in the courtroom reached a boiling point when the prosecution presented a chilling reenactment of the crime, showing how Samantha had staged the scene to resemble a robbery. As jurors and spectators processed the evidence, the gravity of her betrayal settled in, amplifying the emotional stakes of the trial. The contrast between the defense's portrayal of Samantha as a misguided lover and the prosecution's image of her as a calculated killer made for a riveting and unsettling courtroom drama, leaving everyone in attendance grappling with the haunting reality of what had transpired. As the jury filed back into the courtroom, a heavy silence enveloped the room, the tension palpable as everyone awaited the verdict that would determine Samantha's fate. When the foreperson announced, "We find the defendant guilty of murder," a collective gasp swept through the audience. The weight of the decision settled like a shroud over the courtroom, where emotions ran high. Jason sat in stunned disbelief, his heart aching as he processed the reality of what had just unfolded. The betrayal he felt was etched across his face, and tears welled in his eyes, reflecting both the anguish of losing his father and the shocking realization that someone he had loved could commit such a horrific act. The gravity of the verdict was overwhelming, not just for him but for the entire community, which had been deeply affected by the tragedy. The reaction in the courtroom was a mix of sorrow and anger, as friends and family struggled to reconcile the person they thought they knew with the dark reality revealed during the trial. Samantha's family, devastated and in disbelief, sat in silence, grappling with the implications of her actions and the consequences that would forever alter their lives. As the judge prepared to announce the sentencing, the atmosphere in the courtroom shifted to one of somber reflection. The verdict marked not only the end of a legal battle, but also the beginning of a long healing process for those left in the wake of the crime. The devastating impact of Samantha's actions would echo through the community, serving as a haunting reminder of the destructive power of obsession and the profound loss that followed in its wake. In 2024, Samantha was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison, a punishment that aimed to reflect the gravity of her crime. As the judge delivered the sentence, the weight of the moment hung heavily in the air. Jason sat in the courtroom, feeling a mix of relief and sorrow. While he understood that justice had been served, the reality of his father's death would forever haunt him. The long-lasting impact on Jason and his family was overwhelming. They were left to navigate a world forever altered by Samantha's actions. Jason struggled with feelings of betrayal and grief, torn between the love he once had for Samantha and the horror of what she had done. The community, too, bore the scars of the tragedy. Neighbors and friends grappled with the shocking reality that someone so close could commit such a heinous act. As the years passed, Jason found it increasingly difficult to move forward. Family gatherings were shadowed by the absence of his father, and the memories of happier times were tinged with sadness. He sought counseling to help process his emotions, but the pain of losing his father and the betrayal by someone he had trusted lingered in his heart. Samantha's sentencing served as a stark reminder of the consequences of unchecked obsession, a lesson that would resonate throughout the community. The echoes of this tragedy would remain, a cautionary tale about the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary relationships. The scars of the past would take time to heal, but for Jason and his family, the journey toward healing would be long and arduous, marked by the enduring loss of a beloved father and the painful betrayal of a once trusted partner. The tragedy had far-reaching effects, not only shattering Jason's life but also fracturing the entire extended family. Jason's mother, already overwhelmed by the sudden loss of her husband, found herself grappling with the betrayal of a young woman she had once welcomed into their home. The emotional toll was immense. Family gatherings became somber occasions, filled with an unspoken grief that hung heavily in the air. Each empty chair at the table was a stark reminder of the love that was lost and the trust that had been so brutally violated. As the months turned into years, the wounds within the family began to fester. Jason's relationship with his mother became strained, as both struggled to articulate their pain and anger. Conversations often circled back to the past, and healing seemed elusive. The absence of their patriarch left a void that could not be filled, leaving a lingering sadness that permeated their lives. The bond that had once united them was now riddled with distrust and sorrow, making it difficult to find solace in one another. The extended family felt the ripple effects of the tragedy as well. Relatives found themselves caught in a web of conflicting emotions, supporting Jason while also feeling the weight of Samantha's betrayal. The community, once a tight-knit network of friends and neighbors, now felt fragmented. Families began to question their relationships and the people they trusted, wary of the hidden darkness that might lurk behind closed doors. As the years went by, the crime became a painful chapter in the community's history. The story of Jason and Samantha served as a cautionary tale, a reminder of how obsession can lead to devastating consequences. Parents warned their children about the dangers of unhealthy relationships, fostering an environment of caution and mistrust. While some community members sought to support Jason, others struggled with how to engage with a story that was so painful and raw. The legacy of the crime lingered in conversations and memories, a constant reminder of the fragility of trust and the profound impact of betrayal. For Jason and his family, the journey toward healing was slow and arduous, marked by the long-term effects of a tragedy that had irrevocably altered their lives. The scars remained, both visible and invisible, as they navigated a world forever changed by Samantha's obsession and the consequences of her actions. The case left Willow Creek in shock, becoming one of the most disturbing crimes in its history. News of the murder spread quickly, capturing headlines and dominating conversations. Residents grappled with disbelief as they tried to process how someone so seemingly ordinary could commit such an atrocious act. The story of Samantha's obsession with Jason's father became a topic of intense discussion, with many struggling to reconcile the image of a young woman they once thought they knew with the horrifying reality of her actions. As the investigation unfolded, the community found itself divided. Some residents expressed sympathy for Jason, rallying around him in his time of grief, while others were drawn to the darker aspects of the case, sharing theories and speculations about Samantha's motives. Local coffee shops became hubs of gossip, with patrons exchanging opinions on what could have driven her to such extremes. The case sparked debates about mental health, love, and obsession, leaving many questioning how a person could spiral into such darkness. The impact of the crime also manifested in tangible ways within the community. Schools held assemblies to discuss the importance of healthy relationships, aiming to educate students on the dangers of obsession and emotional instability. Parents became more vigilant, encouraging open dialogues with their children about boundaries and trust. The tragic events served as a wake-up call, highlighting the necessity for conversations around mental health and the signs of unhealthy attachments. In the aftermath, Willow Creek's sense of security was shattered. Residents began to feel a pervasive sense of vulnerability, realizing that danger could lurk in the most unexpected places. Trust among neighbors began to erode, and the tight-knit community became more cautious and guarded. Families who had once felt safe in their relationships now found themselves questioning the motives of those around them. As time passed, the story of Jason and Samantha faded from the headlines, but remained a haunting memory for the community. It became a cautionary tale passed down through generations, reminding everyone of the fragility of trust and the potentially devastating consequences of unchecked obsession. The scars left by the crime were etched into the very fabric of Willow Creek, a constant reminder that even in the most ordinary of settings, darkness can sometimes hide in plain sight. In wrapping up our exploration of this haunting case, it's essential to reflect on the broader implications of what we've discussed. This case is a chilling reminder of how dangerous an unchecked obsession can become, leading to unthinkable consequences. It forces us to question how far people are willing to go for love, or the idea of it. As you ponder the complexities of human emotions and relationships, we invite you to engage with us. If you found this story compelling, please like and subscribe to our channel for more true crime content. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you believe the sentencing was fair? What do you think drives someone to commit such a horrific crime? Share your opinions in the comments below and join the conversation. Your insights matter, and together we can delve deeper into the human psyche and the stories that shape our world. Thank you for watching.